Hello, Emma here again, and today we're going to dive right into the concept of proportion in programming. So, in order to be mindful of proportion, there are a few questions that are helpful to ask ourselves. How long is the program? Is it going to be 20, 50, 80 minutes? Keeping this always in the back of your mind is really useful because just the concept of scale in all of this informs which flavors you use and the quantities of these flavors. Also, how will they interact? The proportion has a big role to play in that. What is the focus of your program? Are you creating a 10-course meal with 10 different composers and 10 different languages? Are you only focusing on 2 composers and switching back and forth between them? Are you going to make a song cycle the central piece in the entire program? So is that going to be 20 minutes of one composer? How are you going to plan the proportions of other sets or other composers around this central piece? And also, where does the dramatic and emotional weight of your program reside? Do you start with a bang and make some really intense energy at the beginning? Are you going to have a middle that is fairly based on atmosphere and a calmer sort of dramatic pacing? Basically, what are the high and low points of this program? What is the architecture that you're hoping to build? Another important question to ask is, what is the relationship between the micro and the macro elements of the program? In programming, we're constantly toggling between zoomed in and zoomed out perspectives of the stories we want to tell. So we want to be aware of the overarching purpose and role of each song. They're sort of part of an ecosystem. We start with the smallest unit of the single note, and then that note's relationship to a phrase, that phrase's relationship to a section in a song, then the song itself, going further into the song's place within a set. Then how does that set relate to the sets which surround it? And then how does that all add up to create a coherent and a balanced whole program? So here's an example of how I consider proportion in the program you're going to hear on Friday. Before any drafting was done, I knew that we would be performing the songs for viola and mezzo by Brahms. So here are some of the things that went on in my mind. These songs are 12 minutes in total, with about 6 minutes for each song. 6 minutes is a pretty long time for an art song, because art songs tend to be 2 to 4 minutes usually. 6 minutes coupled with the feeling of Brahms and hearing 12 minutes of Brahms, that will result probably in quite a bit of density, thick textures, lush, romantic sounds, also larger and expansive structures, because Brahms was quite influenced by Beethoven and Bach, and he liked to expand and extend certain structures. How do we then temper the weight and the feeling of profound lyricism we often find in Brahms? Well, I thought that for the sets that would precede the Brahms songs, I would make sure that they're made up of shorter songs and that these shorter songs contain more emotional variety. So I created a set of 3 Beethoven songs and then 3 Schubert songs. The goal was that by the time we reach the Brahms as listeners, we don't perceive any weightiness, even though we've been hearing Germanic music for those first 20 minutes of the program. And then, leaving the sound world of the Brahms, I thought it would be interesting to go to an unaccompanied song by Anna Sokolovich called Ma Mère. Unaccompanied voice music offers different opportunities for experimenting with resonance and the use of time. And I thought that this type of freedom and almost improvisation could provide a very fascinating relief and release to the textures that we would encounter in the Brahms. And on a final note, silence and the spaces between songs and the spaces between sets are immense imaginative opportunities. They influence the way the audience can perceive time, tension and release, and weight and weightlessness. And so they are just more colors and possibilities for us to play with when we're looking at the overall pacing and proportion of our programs. Thank you again for watching, and please join me again tomorrow for our final episode.